Hey everyone. So this morning I woke up a little earlier than I usually do, and I was just laying in bed, and I just had this urge to do a reading on the goddess of like DMT, ayahuasca, maybe more specifically DMT because that's what I've experienced at least. Um, so so normally when I do a reading, it's like for a client, that is, I meditate for like an hour. But sometimes, especially for the YouTube channel, I'll just kind of go into it. It'll just kind of spontaneously happen. And this is one of those times. So, so I'm just gonna get straight into what it was that I was seeing. Um, I did learn some things from this, and this has actually changed my views a little bit and opened my eyes to some things that I was not aware of before. So this is very interesting to me. The first thing I was seeing was almost like the goddess of DMT, and just a background really quick for people who don't understand what I'm talking about. It's common when you smoke DMT a lot, or at least high doses of DMT, that eventually, maybe if you're lucky, you might meet or kind of see like this woman that kind of is like the goddess, like queen of DMT, if you want to put it like that. Different people see her different colors. Some people see her purple. I think that's the most common. I kind of saw her as like a green. Um, in the past, when I had smoked DMT, I don't necessarily think that everyone should, but I do. But I did find it interesting myself. Um, but now that I've done more of a reading on her energy, I'm a little more skeptical if it's really that good of a thing. Although I think indefinite, it definitely can be a good thing. But let me get into the reading, anyways. So I saw her as like this kind of dominant energy that was like appearing at the very top of everything, kind of like melting down. And it was as if like she had to be at the very top of everything, like within your honor, I guess you could say. And it was like, it was only until you could open up that highest point for her to come in and kind of take over and be the most dominant thing that she would kind of manifest. So the weird thing about this is that I saw her energy wanting to kind of scare people a little bit. I saw her being a little bit of a trickster. Like at one point, it was like she'd pop up in front of someone and then she'd like disappear and pop up behind them and then disappear and pop up in front of them just to like kind of spook them a little bit and get people to, you know, be scared and be a little subdued. Like she wants to kind of subdue people a little bit. And on some level, what she wants people to become is like a baby so that she can kind of take care of them, if that makes any sense. So at one point, I also saw her morph into a scorpion with like a scorpion tail. She's gonna sting you and kind of like make you like kind of like die in some sense, not necessarily die, but more like maybe like an ego death sort of thing, where you're like paralyzed from the sting, and now it's like now she can do her work, but she has to kind of do that first. And the other thing, and that's kind of like the negative side, but then the positive side is that once you're subdued, it's like she floods you with her breast milk. And that's the way that I was seeing it, at least symbolically. And it's like her breast milk is like the most nourishing thing. And basically, she wants to be your mother. Um, that's the gist of it here. As far as her energetically as like an individual type of person, I get the sense that she's kind of classy, like maybe someone that would be at a hair styling salon, a little bit of the sassy attitude kind of. Um, and like maybe like someone with like long fingernails and like frizzy kind of like black hair that kind of like puffs out kind of all over the place, and just like a little bit of like this kind of like wild attitude, but at the same time, like very, acceptable, like a sassy kind of someone who might be at a salon that you go to get your nails done by or something like that. So back into kind of more the interesting stuff that I wasn't necessarily expecting to see, kind of surprised me, was that I saw like a person in her presence like a baby. And it was like she's controlling it, and she's like making this like black energy go around this baby. And it's as if she wants to surround you in darkness to kind of turn you into an infant. And then once you become like infantile, then she floods you with this breast milk, symbolically, that is. And this is like the energy of like ecstasy and female empowerment for her. And she kind of can then take on the role as representing the divine feminine. What's interesting about this is it's not necessarily that she is the overall divine feminine, but more so that she is playing the role of it. And I don't mean like playing, like acting, like she really is on some level, but on another level, she is just another being, just like anyone else. Just like everyone has the divine masculine and the divine feminine within them on some level. And so does she. So this isn't to say that she is ultimately the divine feminine, although that is the way that she likes to present herself, because that's how she's expressing herself. That's how she wants to be seen. And so this is, empowering to her, like female empowerment to her, and it's also validating herself as well. And for her spiritually, it's a healing process for her to have that experience with you or with any entity that she may come in contact with. So this can appear kind of sexual at first, but it's actually more like infantile motherly love. So she wants to, connect with you on that sort of level, which can be good and bad depending on how you look at it. So it's like a character. There's good and bad. So she's like demanding to connect with you on that level specifically. And I think that's kind of where the sassy kind of attitude comes from that I was sensing from her before. And it's as if she's saying, like, I am your mother. Like, respect me. I am your mother. Not so much respect me. It's more like you have to respect her. It's like she doesn't even say that. But what she is saying is, I am your mother. And maybe that could also be partially like, I am your mother slash lover, but not so much lover. It's really the emphasis is on mother, but it's like you love your mother and like psychologically, like you kind of a lot of your relationships as an adult kind of match psychologically things about your mother, so there's like that connection there. So it's kind of like there's a little bit of lover, but mostly mother energy involved. And as I was doing this reading, this really reminded me of things that Carlos Castaneda has said. I've done a reading already on Carlos Castaneda and Don Juan. So if you're interested in that, check that out. But anyways, he's kind of like a shaman type figure. He's written some stuff that may or may not be 100% accurate. But regardless, it reminded me of something he said that I do find very interesting, specifically in regards to what I was reading, which is that there are plants like mushrooms and, well, DMT for him it was datura, but other like male and female different plants or power plants, I think is what they called them, psychedelics in other words, and how these plants, sacred plants, have different characteristics that can be divided by male and female. And the male is more like rigid and can be more harsh in that sort of way, but at the same time, a little more strict, I guess you could say, but also, more fair as well on some level, if that makes any sense. Whereas the female is kind of more what I was reading here, which can be more, addictive, kind of like you get addicted to your mother and kind of really taking care of you, but not making you kind of own up to things necessarily as responsible. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen here with this DMT goddess or DMT in general. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, because it does happen, where you have to own up to certain things. But the difference is that there's like this motherly love kind of encompassing it. And as long as you're able to kind of allow yourself to like worship this mother, it's like kind of all forgiving. And then it's like, it's okay as long as you're in that state. And it's a little bit less like that with the male type of archetype, I guess you could say. But anyways, it just reminded me how there's that dynamic, and this is definitely falling into that logic. Not saying it always will, but this example does. So when I tuned in more to this ayahuasca goddess, and I wanted to know what you get out of it, what came up was ecstatic love, like just overwhelming love. So like if you are kind of lacking that in your life, this can be a very healing process for you. And you, in some sense, you kind of become one with her, and that can be good and bad depending on how you look at it. You see, because I mean, becoming one with the universe is one thing, but then there's also being yourself and having your protection up as well, which is also equally important. She does her best to embody the divine feminine, which is obviously can be good for you, but there's also this sense of her being jealous if you're not, seeing her as your mother. So you have to be kind of completely passive to her, and that's what she demands of you on some level. And if you are, then it's like you become her. It's like this kind of like this oneness. and you get this psychic connection with her, and she will kind of help you grow, like a mother would help a child grow, and she'll show you what you need to know in order to grow and kind of, make you happy again and, put things in a positive light. And she can be very, very nice at that point in time, but it has to be under those conditions. And so this is just a great way to, develop and heal wounds, or learn things, be told things, have psychic insights. I know sometimes just like show you things and you'll be like, oh, and that can be like life-changing stuff that's very important. And so there's definitely some value to all of this. But there's also, she has a character to keep in mind as well. So when I was reading this, and I was actually typing this out on my keyboard as like notes so that I can make this video about it, I got the sense that what I was saying was making her kind of sad, and I actually saw a vision of this where she was sad, and it was like she was kind of shocked and almost like frozen and like cold and like had turned to blue, and she had like a tear, and it was like she was showing this tear dropping down her eye. And even though tears usually come down on this side of the eye, it was like coming down this side, and it was like one big giant one. And it was more symbolic, just kind of like to tell me like that's like just destroying her. And then it was like she kind of collapsed into dust as if she was dying, and just like and just like turned into like this like kind of like water substance that just kind of turned into nothingness and turned back into the earth. And then I got this sense that there is that it's just like silent, but like this anger, underlying anger and rage from underneath the ground. And this was the part where she wasn't really showing me this. That's why it was kind of like it was silent. But what I was reading was that there's this silent rage and anger, but she wasn't expressing it like so that I could see it, but I could tell that it was still there. And so again, what it is that she's angry about is she wants to become motherly in every role in exchange for you surrendering to her as your mother. And if you do so, the next picture that I was seeing was of her, and it was like she was being very motherly in a motherly, not sexual sense, but like showing her breasts and had like this rattle, like kind of like reminded me of like a Native American type of scene with like a rattle, but at the very same time it was like a rattle that you'd like rattle for a baby, and her breasts were exposed as if to milk or give milk to a baby. So that was interesting. When I tuned in more to like what are the side effects of this? What is this? Like there's something that she doesn't want me to see here, obviously. So I think people should know what this is. It's only fair. So when I tuned into that, what I was seeing was people kind of like the shadow of a person. And it was these people walking like kind of like zombies towards her. Kind of like zombified was the side effect, I guess you could say, if there was a side effect to her being in her presence or being, controlled by her presence, I guess you could say. But anyways, it was like the outline of like someone, it was like black, which, you know, had the energy of invalidation, not being validated by yourself, and having to kind of look externally towards her for validation, for you to feel validated. And so that's one of the negative side effects of this, like long term. And just being very desperate for her love, which can happen in any sort of relationship, I guess you could say. And the sense of like the sentimental value for her and everything that represents her and everything that reminds you of her, but like losing any sort of sentimental value for anything else. And it's almost like this kind of possessive type of thing. So that's the negative. Of course, there's a positive and a negative with every type of character here. So what she gets, when I asked, what does she get? I saw, like, what does she get out of this? I saw her as an empress, like, you know, standing with like a staff, very proud, and, you know, very proper position, upright, standing, looked very proud with her body language, I guess you could say. There's a sense of empowerment to her where she feels empowered as this goddess, and in some sense with everybody kind of praying to her and like worshiping her on some level, she has this power, and it allows her to express herself kind of wildly. And I saw her like standing there, and then like the next minute she's like and then the next minute she's back to normal, and it was like this crazy kind of like art display of like this wild side of her, and it really reminded me of Shiva a lot. I know Shiva is not necessarily female, but Shiva has a female side. But anyways, it reminded me of Shiva. And she just wants to be able to express herself in a way that can be seen, just like any artist wants people to see their art, you know? And so that's kind of how it is. That's one of the things that she gets from it, but she also gets this empowerment, and she feels validated by other people as well. And that's also a big part of it for her as a entity. When I asked more about like, is there some sort of cause that she's working towards or working for, I got that she's empowering the earth, and like plant life. But I also got the sense that she's really kind of just empowering everything that she depends on, because those are kind of what she depends on. That's kind of where that's the substance that people use in order to contact her with, is the plants coming from the earth. So it's kind of more of a self-healing for her, to heal those things in some sense. Almost like she's one with the earth, you could say, on a different level. But on a more practical sort of way of looking at it, you know, she's doing it for herself. So I did see some interesting things when I asked that question too. I saw like a glass frozen castle, like as a type of like energy that she kind of protects, if that makes any sense, or empowers, like this like place you can go, and this kind of represents more of like her honor, and it's kind of like connecting her to the divine, and that's what that's kind of about. And then I also saw earthly plants, which has more to do with her physical preservation, like I was just talking about. And then the next thing I saw was very interesting, which was her being pleasured by men. Like, men were pleasuring her. And that was more like she was being worshipped. Like, you could say, like a tantric goddess worship of a woman, on that level. And so that was also something coming up, which I didn't expect to see because it was more like the motherly type of archetype, but then there is a little bit of the sexual, um, goddess worship archetype fused in there as well. And so this isn't like necessarily so literal, but that's like kind of some symbolic imagery that kind of portrays the message, if that makes any sense, of the general vibe, of the general energy of what she's about. So then I was like, okay, so then why does she want to be worshipped in this way? Not just by men, but by women too. But the way that I saw it was a picture with men doing that. But I don't think it's specific towards men or women or anything. But why does she want to be worshipped like that? And what I got was that it gives her easy access to influencing you as the person worshiping her, which makes sense. If you're worshiping a god, then that god is going to be much more influential over you, obviously. It creates a connection that works for her, with her energy being the most empowered. Like at the very beginning, I saw it was like her at the very top of everything, and it was like she'd only appear at the very top layer of everything and kind of melt down. And so that's what she's going for, to be kind of dominant on some level as this motherly figure, as if you have to be an infant and be subdued by her on some level in order for her to do her magic. So this can be, not always great. It can be good in some situations, but it can also allow her to kind of get into your space. And by space, I mean energy field and aura, and that can be a little possessive. And it makes it so that you kind of lose a sense of yourself. And on some level, you could say, well, you're connecting with her and you're becoming one with her, and that's great. A lot of spiritual, new age stuff, he likes to use that terminology and make it sound like that's the best thing that could ever happen. But on another level, you're kind of losing your spirit, because you have a spirit too, that you want your spirit to be the most dominant spirit within your space and your aura. That would probably be helpful for you as a spirit, because this is, your living in your body, and that's your energy field. So you should probably be the one in charge of it in your life. I'm not saying temporarily it may be enlightening and enjoyable and fun to, share it for a second, but like ultimately at the end of the day, it should be your field. So that can get a little possessive, but besides for that, she likes to be worshipped in this way because it brings her connection, for just having fun, for her, so she can kind of have fun, being more like playing with you on that level where you're kind of like a little kid, like a little baby, and it's very rewarding for her to be able to take on that role. And she learns to grow. She has new experiences. She has this connection, and this interaction, and just like people, just like you and I, we seek other people. We seek experiences. We seek interactions because we learn and we grow from those interactions. And so that's what she's getting out of this too. So this can be good, this can be bad. It depends on how you look at it. Personally, I'm a little less into the idea than I was when I first started this reading, because now I have more of an idea of where she's trying to put me if I was to smoke DMT again. And sure, that can be cool on some level, but ultimately that's not where I'm trying to go in my life. It doesn't mean I'll never try and have an interaction with her again. But right after I did the reading, I had to clear her energy out of my field just from doing the reading on her. And she was very stubborn and did not want to leave. And it was kind of, you know, then again, most motherly figures don't want to get out of your space either. So it's not like anything I haven't experienced before with human beings who want to be in your space as well. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this reading. If you would like a private reading from me, go to my website, and I'll post the link to my website below this video. I think at some point I may do a reading on the spirit of psilocybin mushrooms, because I think that would be an interesting thing to have kind of in contrast to this. So thanks for watching and have a great day.